Picture this, you're 20 years old at the prime of your life. Working on beginning your career and preparing to move into your own place and build your legacy. Then everything changes one morning when a man is murdered outside his home. You are accused of the murder with the evidence being that a person saying you told them you did the crime. That evidence is weak, to say the least, and seeing as you know that very well you didn't do it, you're confident you will get out. But that's not the case, and you are sitting behind bars of a local jail going on 3 years as a pre-trial innocent detainee. The prosecution has introduced DNA evidence almost 2 years later, after the crime was committed on evidence that they had in their possession from the beginning. They have been getting inconsistent statements from their alleged key witnesses, and their stories keep changing. You have no criminal history and no record. You have been jailed during a global pandemic called COVID-19 and have a chronic condition and considered high risk. Yet you have been denied release while awaiting the second trial after the first trial ended in a hung jury, with nearly all the jurors finding you not guilty. How can this happen? Let's start from the beginning. The young man we are talking about, his name is Daveon Thompson, and he was charged with committing a murder on the west side of Saginaw, Michigan nearly 3 years ago. On January 27, in the year 2018, in the early afternoon, a 26-year-old named Antonio Parham allegedly was shot and killed near the front of his home, as told by witnesses with different stories. According to reports, investigators were involved in an earlier homicide of a man named Brandon Pennywell around 3 months prior. Their key witness in prosecuting this current case had been involved in the investigation for the 1 month prior. That case remains unsolved. Their key witness allegedly advised that the man murdered in November 2017 was done by the current victim from January 2018. In the death of Antonio Parham, investigators stated they learned from eyewitnesses that the person who shot Antonio drove away from the scene in a black Dodge Charger. The Saginaw Township Police located a vehicle that they advised matched the description according to witnesses. The location where it was found is nearly 9 miles away and about 15 minutes away from Daveon's residence. After investigators gathered the identifying information from the vehicle, it was discovered that it belonged to their key witness. Daveon willingly went to the police station to speak with the police and investigators, not knowing he wouldn't walk out of the station free after that. One thing to note is that one of the prosecution's witnesses, in this case, had prior communications with detectives at the Saginaw Police Department regarding an unsolved homicide case a few months prior. The key witness was interviewed several times and her story changed nearly every time. Inconsistent statements along with questionable so-called facts. The investigators collected all physical evidence at the scene of the crime in January 2018. With no claims of DNA from the site linked to Daveon. Daveon sat in jail from January 2018 all the way until August 27, 2019, before his trial happened. After nearly 2 weeks of trial, on September 9, 2019, the jury came back with a 9 out of 12 not guilty, with a deadlock jury, causing a hung jury to be declared. The prosecution initiated to retry the case, and Daveon was sent back to the jail held without bond. Shortly after this, the prosecution presented alleged DNA from an item found at the scene of the crime back in January of 2018. In January 2020, the prosecution now claimed there were multiple traces of DNA found on a laser site at the crime of the scene from January 2018. One of the traces of DNA they claimed belonged to Daveon. The prosecution has tried to offer several plea deals to the defendant. The question that stands out is, why should an innocent person plead guilty to a crime they did not commit? There are several issues with the DNA that allegedly belongs to Daveon. It is called STRMIX. STRMIX provides a likelihood ratio of what is contained in a sample. In order to get to that likelihood ratio, trained analysts have to input hypothesis into the software. STRMIX essentially nets probabilities, so it's a crapshoot as to how it will play out in a given case. Along with inconsistencies with witnesses and information constantly changing, there is no concrete evidence to hold Daveon to this crime. The only thing saying Daveon is guilty is the testimony of a witness who, it's been proved, has made several inconsistent statements with their story changing nearly every time. This witness also had prior communications with the investigators on this case before it happened. People seem to know the case is not right, but the fact is the justice system doesn't seem to provide fair means to help. There were also other witnesses who were never called in the first trial who expressed doubt on the key witness and their testimony. Guess what happened after they spoke to the police and gave their testimony in court? All charges and investigations with them were stopped, and they received immunity from prosecution. Daveon is now sitting in his cell waiting for his second trial, now 23 years old, trying to maintain normalcy within a constant restricted environment, waiting and hoping for this to be all over and for him to resume his life. But he doesn't have too much hope left. He has constantly been denied bond and still waiting in the Saginaw County Jail to this day, waiting in vain for something to help get him out of the web of the broken American system. Please like, share, and comment your thoughts on this story. Stay tuned on this case as it progresses. Daveon Thompson, Saginaw, Michigan.